Hi, and welcome to the video for sections 2.3 and 2.4. We're going to be doing them together because they're very similar topics. What we're going to be talking about in 2.3 is measuring of the location of the data. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to compute percentiles and quartiles. To calculate quartiles and percentiles, we do need to have the data ordered from smallest to largest. Quartiles divide the data into quarters, and percentiles divide the ordered data into hundredths. Let's talk about percentiles for a second. To score in the 90th percentile of an exam does not mean that you received a 90% on the test. It means that 90% of the scores are the same or less than your score, and 10% of the scores are the same or greater than your test score. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Let's practice finding quartiles in a list of numbers. Listed below are 29 ages for Academy Award-winning Best Actors in order from smallest to largest. Remember, we always need to have an ordered list. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the median. The median is the middle item on a list. This list has 29 names or 29 ages, sorry. So halfway through this list will be the 15th item. So we have 14 ages, the 15th, and 14 more. So the middle item, the median, is 47 years old. All right. So that's the median. Now from that, we're going to find the quartiles. If we look at the first half of the list from 18 to including the median 47, halfway through that list is 30. If we look at the second half of the list from 47 up to 77, halfway through that list is 67. So the first quartile is 30, that's 25% of the way through the data. And the third quartile is 67, that's 75% of the way through the data. One thing we like to use to summarize data is called the 5-number summary, and it's a list of values that include first the minimum, the first quartile, then the median, then the third quartile, and then the maximum. We can also think of these as just 5 quartiles. The 0th quartile, or 0% of the way through the data, the first quartile, or 1/4 of the way through the data, 2/4 the way through the data, or the median, 3/4 the way through the data, the third quartile, or 4/4 the way through the data, which would be the maximum. For our example, these values would be 18, that's our minimum, 30 was our first quartile, 47 was our median, 67 was our third quartile, and 77 is our maximum. We're going to learn how to do this using Excel because for any normal size data set, this is going to be very tedious to go by hand. So what I would like you to do now is go to MyOpenMath and download the Excel file for this section. I will do this with you. If you look on this the 2.3 and 2.4 video section, you will see here is the Excel file you need for this lecture. Click on that. Open it up. And you will see, hopefully, a few different spreadsheets. Don't forget to enable editing. Down at the bottom, you'll see there are 3 different spreadsheets. We're going to start with the one that says Example 1 5-number summary. This one has already been all typed in for you. So here are the ages of the Academy Award-winning Best Actors, all listed in column A. And here is where I computed the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. So the minimum, in this box, I typed equals to signify that I'm computing a formula, equals min, and then I selected A2 through A30. When I hit enter, it came out with 18. So this is exactly what I typed in without the quotation marks. For quartile, I typed in quartile, selected the data, and then put in 1 to signify the first quartile. If we jump to the third quartile, you'll see that's a 3 for the third quartile. The median, I use the median command, and the maximum, I use the max command. Let's ignore the percentile stuff for now. Let's go ahead and try this together in a different example. Let's go to example 2. We're going to go look at the price of an avocado, and we're going to compute the 5-number summary for the price of the avocado. Remember, the first in the 5-number summary is minimum, so I'm going to type equals to let Excel know that I wanted to compute a formula, MIN, and then right parenthesis. Then I'm just going to go over here and drag all the way down my values until I select all the data. Scroll up, and you'll see up here in the formula box and right here in the cell, the same thing. It says find the minimum of the values in A2 through A52, and those are my data values, A2 all the way through A52. Now I'm going to put an in parenthesis and hit enter, and tells you the minimum value is 93 cents. Let's compute the first quartile. I type equals so that I know that I'm doing a formula, and I type quartile. I do my parentheses. What array do I want this on? Well, the same data array as before. I'm going to select all those guys again. You don't have to select. You could type A2 through A52 if you wanted to. I want the first quartile, so I'm going to go comma. Quartile, the one I want is 1, shift, parentheses. So quartile, my array of data, A2 through A52, first quartile, enter, and the first quartile is $1.07. Let's compute the median, equals median. Maybe I'll just be fancy and do A2 colon A52. And you can type it in that way as well. You don't have to drag and select if you don't want to. Median is only one possible thing, so we don't have to tell it a first median or second median or anything. In my parentheses, hit enter, and my median value for the price of an avocado is $1.16. Do the third quartile, equals quartile, A2 through A52, comma 3, third quartile, enter, enter, and finally maximum equals max, A2 through A52. And you'll notice when you type at A2 through A52, you got to put a colon in between because that says through, and it will show you the date you select this. You can see that it is selected correctly. Hit enter, and that's the maximum amount, $1.45. Whenever you're typing a formula, if you start typing something and it goes terribly wrong, let's just type some crazy stuff, and you realize you're like doing something crazy, and you're like, I can't get out of this. Escape is your best friend. Hit escape, it just backs you out of it, and you don't have to worry about what you just typed. All right, so that's how you use Excel to find your 5-number summary. Let's go back and talk about percentiles. And if you want to make, backing up just a second, here is all the commands typed out for my example that I had. So let's find percentiles using Excel. Again, we have 29 ages for Academy Award-winning Best Actors in order from smallest to largest. Let's find the 70th percentile and the 83rd percentile. So this uses the command in Excel equals percentile, the data array, and then you type in the percentile that you want as a decimal. So if I want the 70th percentile, I type in 0.7. If I want the 83rd percentile, I type in 0.83. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like in Excel. This is from our first sheet, so go back to the first sheet, and you can see where I typed this in here. 70th percentile was 63.2. You can see I typed it in there. And the 83rd percentile is 71.24. This means that 70% of the Academy Award winners are 63.2 years or younger, and 83% are 71.2 years or younger. Let's practice computing percentiles on our avocado. Let's do the 30th percentile. So we're going to go equals percentile. I think I spelled percentile wrong. That's okay. There we go. Left parenthesis, select all my data. Comma. And now is where I type in the percentile that I want the 30th, so I type in 0.3. So the 30th percentile is $1.07, which makes sense. It's really for close to the first quartile. There must have been $1.07 on there a few times. 25% of the way is pretty close to 30th. So there's probably a few values there. $1.07 means 30% of the time an avocado was cheaper than $1.07, and 70% of the time it was more expensive. All right, let's talk a little bit more about interpreting these values. On a timed math test, the first quartile for time it took to finish the exam was 35 minutes. I would like you to interpret the first quartile in the context of this situation. So finish these sentences. 25% of the students, ... 75% of the students, ... Pause the video and finish those sentences. All right, are you back? If the first quartile was 35 minutes, that meant that 25% of the students finished the test in 35 minutes or less, and 75% of the students took longer than 35 minutes to finish. Here's another example. I would like you to figure out which of these are true statements. On your chemistry test, you scored in the 30th percentile of the class. Which of the following are true statements that you know for sure are true? Go ahead and pause the video See if you can figure out which of these are true. You did not necessarily, you got a 30% on the test. Not necessarily. You maybe got a 30% on the test. It depends on how the test scores come out. But what you do know is that you actually, number two, scored higher than 30% of the class. You did not score lower than 30% of the class. You scored lower than 70% of the class. You definitely failed this test. I mean, maybe not. I can't say that for sure. Depends on what the grading scheme is for the test. And you definitely can't also say whether you passed a test. So the only statements that you know for sure are statements 2 and statement 5. All right, let's talk about box plots. Now that we've learned how to compute percentiles, quartiles, 5-number summary, and we know a bit about interpreting them, let's go ahead and make a nice visual representation using a box plot. A box plot, maybe also called a box and whisker plot, is a good graphical image of the 5-number summary. What you do to construct a box plot is you mark the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. Then you draw a box from the first quartile to the third quartile with a dashed line at the median. This gives you a nice way to look at all the data that you've collected. So for this example, the minimum was 1, the first quartile was 2, the median is 7, and the third quartile is 9, and the maximum is 11.5. The whiskers extend to show the first and the difference between the minimum and the first quartile and the third quartile and the maximum. All right, so let's go ahead and learn how to do this in Excel. It's very easy. Go back to that Excel file we had opened up and go to the third tab that says Box and Whisker. To do a box and whisker plot, select your data. You can include the name of the data as well. Go to Insert. Go to Charts. I think it's under the histogram one. Yep. It looks at the one we used for histogram before. If you go one below it, it says Box and Whisker. Go ahead and select that one and click. Oh, it didn't do my chart title automatically. That's disappointing. So we'll have to type in the chart title, Ages of Academy Award-winning Best Actors. There we go. And there's our box and whisker plot in Excel. Very straightforward to do. Now back, let's go ahead and see if we can interpret what a box and whisker plot is telling us. Look at this box and whisker plot. It's a little bit unusual. See if you can figure out what's going on in this one. Pause the video, think about what it's trying to tell us, and come back. All right, well, this box and whisker plot looks unusual because it doesn't have a left whisker. And so what does that mean? It means that at least 25% of the values must be equal to 1 because the minimum is equal to the first quartile. It also tells us there is no median mark, right? So the third quartile is at 5 and the max is at 7. But what does that mean about the median? It means that at least 25% of the values are equal to 5. And only 25% of the values are going to be between 1 and 5 inclusive. So what we could have is 25% of the values at 1, 50% of the values at 5, and 25% more values at 7. That makes sense. Well, this is the end of section 2.4. You're ready to start the homework for that.